slap somebody. Good. This is good. Yeah. We sold a whole lot of tickets in the last couple of days. It always stresses me out how that works. I know, yeah. Yeah. Right. Are they? Yeah. Yeah, you need at least that many. Or at least, at 100 you don't have to be good. That's the secret. Yeah. Yeah. The version that I like is a guy referred to it as 5 Sigma laughers. You need at least some 5 Sigma laughers. Yeah, at least some people will laugh at every piece of garbage you throw out. Yeah, and then you said, yeah. But yeah, this should be funny. It always amazes me how, like, 500 people does not look like 500 people. It looks like nobody came. Yeah. Yeah, right, yeah. It is. Yeah, and I just, it's on the YouTube page, so I tweeted it and the BAHFest account tweeted it. Right. Yeah. Yeah, if you want to tell people to tweet, that might be good. Maybe just Bah or BAHFest. Yeah, hashtag BAHFest. Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, at BAHFest. Yep, and we have a guy on it, so no bar. Yeah, it's a sober audience. Yeah. Yeah. I wish, yeah, if we could just tank them up a little bit. Yeah. Or the drunk people. The deviation changes in the experience. Let's get pretty good at that. Right. Oh yeah, okay, yeah. You can sign my book. Yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely. Great. Probably about 7:05.
My name's Weinersmith. I draw a comic called Saturday Morning Breakfast Cereal. Thank you. I'm glad you like it. I'm not really a fan of it. I'm more into XKCD. I used that joke earlier at Google, so some of the people are here and probably really mad. Well, it's a real honor, a real pleasure to be here doing a fake evolution show in the country that gave us Darwin. I'd like to think he'd be really disappointed. I'm here from Texas, and in Texas, really? Howdy. I'm from Texas, and in Texas, actually, evolution is not true. We took a vote because we have democracy. And it's actually an important part of Texan history. In 4004 BC, God created Texans, just reached down and touched them, and then I can't remember. I actually brought a public school textbook from Texas. There it is. And then, Jesus Christ wrote the Constitution. And then the USA single-handedly won World War II. Hooray. Well, thank you all for coming. Seriously, it means a lot to me that I can fly across the Atlantic, and there's a nice audience here to come out and see our nerd jokes. So shame on all of you, and thank you. And I will now pass you off to our host for the evening, Mr. Matt Parker.
Weinersmith, ladies and gentlemen. That's enough. He did 2.5 jokes at best. Okay, so welcome to BAHFest, a celebration of bad ad hoc hypotheses. And this is going to be good. We've got 6 people with real scientific credentials trying to convince you that their bad ad hoc hypotheses is true. Spoiler alert, they're not. It is, as was... Are we interacting already? At which point did I give the impression I want to hear from you guys? Unbelievable. Are you one of the contestants? Wow, you've shot yourself in the foot early. Wow, you're going to learn from that random attempt, aren't you? Right, okay, so... Evolution joke there. The theme is evolution, and I mean, not only is UK the home of Darwin, but here at Imperial College there is the Huxley Building, after Thomas Huxley, the contemporary and defender of Darwin. And if they were both here to see this now, you're right, they would be hugely disappointed. In fact, we have the trophy you can win is just Darwin looking unimpressed. A little reminder, you have shat over everything he believed and worked towards. So one of you, but not you, have a chance to win that tonight. And this is the first BAHFest in the UK, and I'm hugely privileged to be part of this as your host tonight. My name, as mentioned, is Matt Parker. For those of you who've not met me before, I work as a mathematician. Oh, wow. Very sadly, sir, in this room, you're statistically insignificant. Okay, so, right, no, stop. Wow. Statistical significance is like the knob gag of nerd comedy, guys. It's really... I'm disappointed in all of you for applauding that. Okay, and so, for those of you who don't know, I'm based at Queen Mary, University of London, one of the many colleges in London still good enough for the University of London. And oh, that's the line, is it? I enjoyed his statistical gags, but this political stuff is too much. And I'm there part-time, and the rest of the time I work doing comedy and mass communication work. So I'm a decent percentage of Festival of the Spoken Nerd. We put flyers on your seats. So we've got one last show coming up, which is fantastic. I'm hugely biased. I also do a lot of work. I've written a book. I do work on radio, and I do a decent amount on the internet. So I have my stand-up mass channel and number file. Any number file people in? That's literally tens of you. All right, it's the first bad ad hoc hypothesis is my career is going well. So there you are, because we've got a lot of young people, a lot of YouTube people, and this is a lot like a live YouTube channel, right? So we're going to have a series of people coming up. They're going to do their spot. I'm like the bit that comes up, and I'm like, up next is another video about something unrelated. And then but you have no way to opt out. Oh, and I've had to actually print out the pop-up ads and put them on your seats. So I hope, it's a little analog, but I hope it's going to work. Right, so we're going to do a quick survey of the people we've got in. So obviously we're based at Imperial. We have a decent number of students in. Everyone who is a student or works here, can I get a cheer from all the Imperial College people? Okay, and then the complimentary set, a cheer from everyone else? Oh, you guys sound a lot more excited. That's fantastic. Yeah, Imperial people, oh, we're outnumbered for a change. My goodness. That explains the sudden gender balance. I'm not sure which of those two groups was applauding then. Okay, and we'll check nerdy and non-nerdy, right? Because this should be an evening everyone can enjoy. So can I get a cheer from all the sciencey people? Well, that was intimidating. Okay. And for completeness, the non-sciencey people. Okay, that's... You committed prematurely to a Mexican wave that didn't result. I mean, I see we've sat people who don't think things through together. I like that. That's good work. Okay, right, and so we've got a decent mix, largely sciencey, but everyone else, you're very welcome. And, admin, right, so admin. If in the case of a fire, if the alarm goes off, any point in tonight's show, you're all adults, deal with it. If there's, leave calmly through the sides. Most of the building is wood. And concrete and bits of the Queen's building they pushed over. There is no interval, so if you need to go to the bathroom, you're an adult, deal with it. There's a recurring theme here. There's no drinks. It's not BAHFest, it's BAHFest. And so if anyone has managed to sneak in a drink, fantastic, good work. If anyone can get an entire pint in for me, you will win the Matt Parker, Good Effort Award, which counts for absolutely nothing. And your phones are allowed to be on. Of course, we encourage tweeting and fact-checking. If you do fact-check, you'll be hugely disappointed. So the hashtag apparently is BAHFest. And, I mentioned this is a bit like a live YouTube. We're actually streaming it on YouTube. So for the people watching it on YouTube, it's just, I think it's neutered my analogy for a start. But you're welcome to join on. If you particularly enjoy it, you can tweet it and people can join in online watching it. But obviously they won't have the sheer excitement that you all do of being in the room here. Okay, so I think that's everything. I'm going to do a quick bit of warm-up to get your brains going, and then we have a keynote speaker. So for the warm-up, just to make sure you're all firing on all cylinders, can everyone who brought a calculator, can you take that out now? Everyone who's got a calculator. Really? Oh, Imperial, you have served me proud. That is good work. Okay, right, so there's down there a photo. Are you taking a photo? Subtle, really subtle, I like that. He'll think I'm calculating. So, okay, if you have got a calculation device, we're going to do this very quickly, no fuss, no bother. You're all welcome to join in. I want you to, on your calculating thing, put in any two-digit number you fancy. Choose any 2 digits, type them in, and then you're going to find the cube of that 2-digit number. So take the 2 digits, multiply them by themselves again, hit equals. That's just for any medics who are in. And then I want... If you're applauding that easy a shot, you're in for a long night, okay? And so once you've got the answer on your screen, what you've done is the boring part of mathematics, the multiplying things over and over. The fun part is what you can do with the answers. So is there anyone who's got an answer on their screen they're prepared to share? Is anyone prepared to give? Okay, reluctant. Not you. What have you got over there? So what's the answer on your screen?
15625.
156,000... so you put in 55 and cube that.
So that is 15625.
15625. You put in 25 and cube that. Okay, to be honest, the payoff really dripped off towards the end there, didn't it? That's, I don't want to choose a favorite side this early, but it's you guys. Is there anyone on this side who would like to read their answer out in a way that I can understand it? Okay, right at you're actually holding your calculator aloft. lit up like some kind of nerdy concert. That's so good. Okay, I like you. I like the cut of your jib. Okay, can you very loudly read out the actual number, and can you say the number of thousands and then the rest so we can all picture it? What have you got? Right back there, third from the edge, yes.
1,000.
You're now my second least favorite. If I were not a finisher completer, anyone else would have given up by now, but oh no, we're doing this. We will stay behind if we have to. It's your collective time you're wasting. One last time. I made the mistake of going for the first one that came. Okay, right, so who's hesitant? Right, yes, better. Okay, here we go.
148,877.
53. Yep. Boom! Put them away, the shine has really worn off. Okay, so... Okay, now, we traditionally have a keynote. Very sadly, this afternoon, our keynote speaker was unable to make it. It was going to be Tracy King, but due to illness, not her fault, she can't come along. And so we had a quick survey backstage to see if we had any internationally famous online nerd comic authors. And so you may know your keynote speaker as being the author of Saturday Morning Breakfast Cereal. Or you may know him as that guy who did my warm-up a moment ago. Please welcome back, it's Zach Weinersmith.
Hey. Anyone from Texas? Hello again. I'm as surprised as you are. We found out just a little while ago that Tracy was sick. We're all very sad. Hopefully she's watching at home. So I put together a theory of evolution in the last 2 hours with a little help from your friend and mine, MS Paint. Because that's all that was available. So you're all college students, so you probably don't have any experience doing anything at the last minute. But the writing may come out okay. The artwork has suffered a bit, but we will press on. I want to give you an evolutionary puzzle that I've worked on a little bit. Maybe some of you have seen this in some of my previous work, which is that it's been well documented that squirrels appear to bury nuts randomly. And it's not really well understood why. They sort of find a nut, and then they bury it, and then they just wait till winter, and they start digging wherever, and they find nuts. This is true. Squirrels are idiots. And if you think about it, it's a really crazy strategy. It would be sort of like... It'd be like saving money by throwing a 20-pound note out the window every time you got it and just assuming if you threw out enough of them, when you went outside, there'd be money for you. I have a slide for that. Now, this seems like a bad strategy, but you have to imagine, for the analogy to work, imagine you were a person who has access to a magic money tree. Then this might be a viable way to do your business. In other words, the dominant theory right now is that the squirrels bury money randomly for the same reason MPs bury money, which is that there's just plenty more where that came from. See, that's a squirrel. So clearly the version with the MP makes sense, but why would a squirrel behave so irrationally? So I have an alternative I want to propose, which is that trees have evolved to produce acorns so that they look like squirrel heads in order to convince them to bury the heads as quickly as possible. Oh, do I have a... Yeah, he's upset. So this is an MS Paint drawing of an acorn, and there's a squirrel. So there's an acorn, and here is what a squirrel's head looks like in MS Paint. And you can see they're practically identical. And there must be a reason. So here's how our theory goes. Imagine you're a squirrel. That's you equals a squirrel. That's math. Matt knows about that sort of stuff. And then you're walking around, you're just minding your own business, and then wham! A head falls on you, a decapitated squirrel head. This is the slide where I discovered there was a text tool in this. So what do? You bury the hideous, horrible head wherever you can find a place for it. Oh. Does anyone know the reference? I'm not going to tell you. What? Which one is the answer? Oh, the phones. The phone is not the author of the phone. So you bury the head wherever you can. Now, suppose you've satisfactorily buried the head, and then another one falls. And another. And another. So you bury those two. And you bury, and you bury, and you bury, and things keep coming and coming, one after the other. And this perfectly explains the random distribution. Because if you were a sane squirrel, you weren't yet driven to madness by the constantly falling heads of strangers, you'd probably put them in nice rows. So you're probably already convinced, but you might question, well, why doesn't the squirrel just evolve to be able to tell a nut from a head? Or why doesn't it just evolve to not care? And there's a simple answer. It's a symbiosis between the tree and the squirrel. There's a mutual advantage to be had here. That's a tree on the left. So what happens is you've buried thousands of these comrades of yours, these heads, and at this point the squirrel becomes what we call nuts. It's an acronym. And so since he's nuts, this is sometime later he starts digging up the heads. And eating the delicious goo inside. So by this means, the squirrel gets plenty of nutrition. He probably actually eats more than he was going to eat anyway. And the tree benefits because some of the nuts don't get dug up later. He just doesn't get to them because he's crazy, so you get more trees. Hooray. I forgot about the text tool there, I guess. And when you get more trees, you get more acorns. And so that means more nutrition. So everyone's winning. So this explains the unique morphology of acorns. And the random distributions of nuts. In closing, I want to document, a good theory should have explanatory power. We want to posit a future research direction. So we think when nobody's looking, it's probably the case that squirrels sit around and cry and drink. And we'll be looking into this after the show at the park, actually. So in closing, given the clear benefits to squirrels in this process, perhaps we should go back to our earlier analogy and consider whether it would be beneficial to throw realistic human heads at members of parliament. Thank you.
Weinersmith, ladies and gentlemen. So there's a rough illustration of what we would like to see from all our contestants tonight. Zach, like a true professional, keeping the bar nice and low there. And so now, as people come up and present let's just keep that behind me. I'll enjoy that. So as people come up and present their bad ad hoc hypotheses, you get to judge them. And in addition to the traditional way that you get to judge everyone, including me right now, you will, in a very real sense, be able to judge them. We have a clapometer. So seriously, we've got like a decibel reading device over here. So at the end, we will do a scientifically looking survey where I will measure the decibels of your applause to rank the top 3 people by audience vote. Decibels, of course, being a SI unit. I have no idea what they use, what the imperial equivalent is. Loud furlongs or something, so you can do your own conversions at home. And so to give the whole process the thin veneer of validity, which is very much a theme this evening, we have 3 judges who will be on stage, who will also be questioning and ranking all of the speakers. And so I'm going to get them to come up on stage now. Can we have a quick round of applause for all 3 judges who are going to make their way up here? I will now introduce all 3 of them, and once you know who they are, you can give them a genuine round of applause. From your left, Steve Mould is a science presenter for the BBC and ITV. He's also a stand-up comedian and is another 1/3 of Festival of the Spoken Nerd. Please see you. Some of you may be unknowingly sitting on his face right now. Next, in the center, Zoe Margolis. She is a writer, journalist, and commentator on sex, gender, and feminist issues. She has a blog and a book called Girl with a One-Track Mind. And to the right, Ed Young, who is a science journalist at The Atlantic. I guarantee you have all read something he has written. He has written for National Geographic, New Scientist, New Yorker. He has a book out called coming out in the summer, dangerously close to being out, called I Contain Multitudes. Give a round of applause genuinely for all 3 judges. Okay, so I feel the most sorry for Ed, to be honest. This is pretty much your day job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Assessing terrible evolutionary hypotheses, but today, people are making them deliberately bad, rather than just accidentally bad.
Okay, you think very highly of the people you have to evaluate for work.
I love it.
Zoe,
I'm the only layperson here, aren't I? Probably in the entire room. So I'm going to believe all of these bad hypotheses.
So that they convince you.
Totally. I'm already convinced. I've just seen them warming up, yeah.
There you are. So it's yours to lose, or gain and lose again. And Steve, what are you looking for in a bad?
I'm looking for a testable hypothesis. So is there something that they can come up with, a way of testing their hypothesis? Otherwise it's...
Okay, so then something that's not so vague it can't be tested.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, okay. Now, we do actually have 4 real criteria that apparently we pretend to use to judge everyone by. It has the acronym FAPS. If you came here on the strength of seeing a demonstration of FAPS, you may be sorely disappointed by what is about to come. The F apparently it's your dirty minds, not mine. The F apparently stands for force of science. So the first criteria is how much sciencey-ness can they cram into their hypothesis. We want to see charts, we want to see references, we want to see correctly labeled axes, but still in a font too small to read. In terms of artistry, the A, we want to see both creative theories and we want to see them argued passionately and evangelically. In terms of parsimony, you really needed a P, didn't you? Which is another way of saying stingy, right? So we don't want elaborate theories that, vaguely match the charts and data given, right? We want to see how close Occam's razor can cut, right? Is there, albeit ridiculous theory, the simplest one you can think of to explain everything else they are presenting? And finally, S is for strength of defense. There will be a chance for the judges to ask questions. Oh, you're writing these down like you haven't seen them before. Good job, everyone. Much like everyone else, you've done no research. Right, so the judges will get to ask questions. You will get to judge if you think the people presenting have given a defensible case. Have they actually argued their corner? Okay, so I think that is it. We are ready to go racing into this. We're going to have 6 speakers. They're going to come up and present from the lectern over here. Then the judges are going to ask questions, and then I will bring on the next one and we continue. At the very end, you'll be asked to cheer for your top 3 favorites. So try and remember your favorite 50% as we go along. So, oh, by the way, what I'm going to do is mention the person's name. I'm going to describe them. That's your cue to start coming up. When they get here, I'll say their name again, give them a round of applause, and they're going to fly into it. So, your first presenter, Dr. Kat Arie, is a science writer and broadcaster. She has worked for BBC Radio 4. She's worked for the Naked Scientist radio program. Her book is out now. That's not her, by the way. That's Lloyd again. Give a round of applause for Lloyd. Yeah. I'm guessing, I suspect we're going to see a lot of Lloyd tonight. So, meanwhile, she has a book out called Herding Hemingway's Cats, all about genes. Can you please put your hands together for Dr. Kat Arie.
Hello, good evening. Thank you very much for having me to present my bad ad hoc hypothesis. Now, as a writer and as a drunk, I'm a big fan of Ernest Hemingway. Now, apart from like the casual misogyny, homophobia and violence kind of stuff. But as a biologist, I am also a big fan. And the reason why sheds light on what I believe is an important next step in evolution. Now, in this Venn diagram, I've outlined some of the key traits. God, you're just laughing at an empty Venn diagram. I've outlined some of the key traits associated with Hemingway, namely fighting, as exemplified by his books like Death in the Afternoon, For Whom the Bell Tolls, I mean, all the war ones. God, the man loved fighting. Fishing, The Old Man and the Sea, and mating. Pretty much everything else. And all 3 of these behaviours coalesce on one organism. So, specifically with reference to Hemingway, these cats, these are Hemingway cats. They're found in abundance on his estate in Florida, down in the Florida Keys, and these are polydactyl cats. You can note the extra toes. This is a thumb cat here. They're often referred to as Hemingway cats or thumb cats. And according to legend, the first of these cats arrived when Ernest Hemingway was given a 6-toed polydactyl cat by an old sea captain. And these 6-toed cats are still commonly found up the eastern seaboard of the US today. Now, I think there are several reasons why 6-toed cats may be kept on ships and obviously, bred and encouraged to live on ships. So some advantages of marine feline polydactyly. Firstly, enhanced rodent control properties, being able to grip prey with their larger and more prehensile digits. Furthermore, this presence of a thumb, it gave cats increased prehensility, enabled them to grip onto ropes, other kinds of bits of rigging during times of oceanic turbulence. A demonstration. So both these features would have a very, very strong evolutionary pressure because unenhanced felines lacking this extra thumb would either starve from lack of prey or they'd be gained to the briny deep and lost to the breeding pool during stormy weather. But I think there's an even more potent evolutionary driver to keeping these six-toed cats and encouraging them to breed on board ships. And that is that sailors are really freaking superstitious. And so what is more lucky than a cat with 5 toes, right? A cat with 6 toes. So I think that there's been a very, very strong evolutionary pressure to keep this mutation among cats living with sailors. Now, I'd just like to go into this mutation just a little more technical detail as a geneticist. So it's due to a naturally arising fault in a control switch for a gene called Sonic Hedgehog. Believe me, it was named after the video game character. There's a lovely story about the professor in the lab going into McDonald's and wondering why his gene was so popular that they were naming a Happy Meal after it. But the element, the control element that's shown here, this is the limb-bud enhancer. This is responsible for switching on Sonic Hedgehog in the developing limb, whether that's a mouse, this is a mouse, or a cat or a baby growing in the womb, and it directs the formation of digits. And if this is mutated, as in the case of the Hemingway cats, basically Sonic Hedgehog is overactive and the paw doesn't know when to stop making digits, starts making extra thumbs. Now, this is the mutation responsible for the Hemingway cats. And we've seen how they have used, these polydactyl cats have used this naturally occurring mutation to wheedle their way into the affection of the seafaring profession. Now, I would like to now propose that having done this once, they are now poised to do it again, moving their affections up the intellectual food chain. And in doing so, I believe that they're going to gain access to the tools they need to take the next step in their biological journey. So this is my hypothesis. By taking advantage of a naturally occurring mutation and an innate affinity with scientists, cats are now poised to become masters of their own biological destiny. So, over recent years, we have seen increasingly intense interactions between cats and the scientific community, the profusion of science-themed lolcats, acting as notable exemplars. Obviously, you can't make science-themed lolcat jokes too often. Now, a Google image search reveals literally thousands of images of cats with scientists, including in labs, 6-toed cats as well. In particular, these polydactyl cats are of great interest to scientists. They combine their own genetic curiosity with excessive cuteness. And I propose that these cats with thumbs have leveraged this naturally occurring mutation to deliberately infiltrate the hearts and minds of the research world with the express goal of gaining access to gene editing technology. These new tools, known as the CRISPR-Cas9 system, these allow scientists to specifically change small, defined regions of the genome with a high degree of accuracy. Now, I think it's only a very small step from using a prehensile feline thumb to grasp the tail of a mouse or a passing rope during a storm, to being able to operate molecular biology equipment such as pipettes and Eppendorf tubes. And by artificially manipulating the control switches in their genome, as has naturally happened with the Sonic Hedgehog control switch, I believe cats will be able to effect further dramatic evolutionary changes, such as enhanced intelligence, enhanced physical capabilities. They've got a thumb. What if they could really grip? And also, obviously, we know that they would, obviously, the first move they'd want to do is significantly increase their already significant capacity to be total bastards. But we know from our previous experience with cats that they are bastards. And these engineered skills will then enable them to pick locks, to obtain and load firearms, and ultimately overthrow the human race. And given that cats are already the dominant species on the internet, I feel it's only a matter of time before they actually assume this role in real life. And I, for one, welcome our feline overlords. Please, buy my book. I'll be on. I take cards and cash. I'll have to stay away from it.
I'm convinced.
I know, right?
Can you propose a way of testing the hypothesis?
I mean, obviously, you just need to leave some cats in the lab. Has anyone here actually work in a lab? Anyone got a cat? Do not let your cat near the lab. That's how you would test it. I think all you would need is to put some cats in a lab, and thumb cats, obviously, and then just
with the CRISPR thing.
It would have to be. I mean, every lab's got CRISPR now. You show me a lab that hasn't got CRISPR. Even the physicists, they don't know what it is, but they've just got it. They've just heard it. It's in the papers and everything, so it must be good. Put some cats in a lab.
So, Kat, if 6 toes bestow such an advantage upon cats, why are there no 7, 8, 15, 50-toed cats?
There are.
This is a good time for you to pull your mask off.
The Hemingway mutation. So there are various mutations in Sonic Hedgehog that can give, particularly in humans, they can give multiple digits. And I think one of the cats with the most toes, there are other mutations that give polydactyly. And I think there's something like 26 toes is the most toes ever known on a cat. Some cats have like loads of toes.
Is that a cat thing, or do other? I mean, is it?
You get polydactyl chickens, silky chickens. You can get polydactyl horses that have like an extra thumb sticking out the back of their hoof. Polydactyl humans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's worth noting, by the way. Matt mentioned
they don't get in the labs though. It's only cats that are really.
Okay, I see.
We might see, given that dogs are actually rising in dominance. I mean, maybe they'll be next, but dogs wouldn't overthrow humans.
Did you come up with this hypothesis entirely because your name is Cat?
So here's the joke, right? Don't tell my publisher. I hate cats. I'm really
Book
dog
out
person.
now.
It's worth mentioning, Matt mentioned that 2/3 of Festival of Spoken Word are on stage, but from a genetic point of view, it's actually 5/6, because Kat Arie shares 50% of her genes with her sister, Helen Arie, who's in Festival of Spoken Word, so it's actually 5/6. Check out the flyer on your seats.
I want Zoe to ask me a question. Fuck the patriarchy. We are the only 2 women in this event.
I'll be honest, it's less patriarchy and more scheduling. But would you like to ask a question?
I don't so much have a question as a comment, which is just, I believe you. And that's pretty much it. And I love cats and can't believe that you don't after coming up with this hypothesis.
I'm sorry.
But no, actually, a sort of question. More toes, more power?
I think so, yeah. I think, that maybe with like multi-repeating guns and things, they could like really...
Yeah, that figures, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Kat Arie! There you go. Undoing all her good work with a last-minute admission she hates cats. Okay, up next. Woo! Yeah. Wait, your name is Lloyd. I've not misremembered that, right? That's correct. That's correct. Okay, good, because that would just be embarrassing, wouldn't it, Lloyd? Okay, so while Lloyd is switching the presentations, up next we have Steve Hodson. So Steve Hodson, who's ready to move. There we go, right, so he's I'm not going near it until Lloyd has fixed it. Okay, right, Steve Hodson, very correctly, coming up very calmly now. He is I'll just skip ahead to the punchlines, people. He is a neuroscience graduate from the University of Central Lancashire. He is currently a broadcast engineer, describes himself as a technophile, humanitarian, and dabbler. Can you please put your hands together for Steve Hodson?
Hello. Did I turn the lights out before I left my flat today? What have I seen that actor in before? And where the hell did I leave my keys? These are questions that have plagued humankind for as long as anyone can remember. I personally have trouble remembering where I need to be unless I constantly check my calendar. And I never remember anyone's birthday unless Facebook reminds me. And I almost forgot completely to submit a theory to this very conference. So the question I want to answer is, why can't I remember anything? The answer, there's simply more risk to my survival from remembering things than from forgetting them. So my study hypothesized that having a good memory increases the amount of animosity and wrath an individual receives from their peers. To exemplify this, imagine you were to witness a mafia hit where the killer was never caught. Then a couple of years later, you bump into that hitman. Recognizing them can be fatal. I was actually worried about how crap my illustrations would look until Zach's. So your body language will completely betray you. Your eyes will widen in surprise and fear. Your jaw might drop, and before you know it, you're their next victim. It takes effort, a practiced poker face, to remember, but to not get caught remembering. Another example. We've all been to one of those social gatherings or parties where one of the guests remembers an embarrassing moment from years before that everyone else would much rather stayed forgotten. But they can't help but bring it up, resulting in that person being ostracized and never being invited back to parties and ultimately dying alone. Forgetting, on the other hand, is very easy to get away with. Firstly, if someone really obviously forgets something important, then there's an unspoken social contract for us not to call them on their forgetfulness on the understanding that they would do the same for us. Secondly, names. Names have a very special kind of unimportance to our memories. Raise your hand, for example, if any of you can remember my name right now. Not many of you. Anyway, this forces everyone to refer to everyone else by various pet names, which makes things easier and also increases social bonding. This includes people in relationships, families, friends and acquaintances. It's even become the norm for people getting married to need a minister standing by to remind the happy couple of each other's names. The only people who kick up much of a fuss when we can't remember names these days are teachers, but since they're not even allowed to punish their students with beatings anymore, then there's less risk to the survival of forgetful people than ever before. The benefit of having a Swiss cheese-like memory is that you can make people feel more comfortable around you, because they know you'll forget, for example, that time they loudly farted in front of you thinking it would be a silent one. They have the confidence to talk with you and not worry that they might say something stupid because the shame will only be fleeting before they know you've forgotten all about it. This, of course, helps them to feel more comfortable mating with you without the worry that you'll take too much note of how funny their face looks as they climax. So for this study, an experiment was conducted to confirm some of my suspicions. There were 10 participants randomly selected from the experimenter's circle of friends. They were randomly assigned to one of two groups. Individually, each participant was then regaled with a set of 3 anecdotes in a random order. So those in group 1 would be told 2 fake stories and 1 embarrassing anecdote from the experimenter's own childhood. Those in group 2 would be told 3 fake stories. This was a control just on the off chance that, for whatever reason, everyone in group 1 happened to remember the embarrassing anecdote. The participants were then made to watch Total Recall on DVD, after which they were asked to recite the anecdotes they could remember. So once each participant had either recalled or failed to recall the embarrassing anecdote, a metric was used to measure just how much the experimenter wished they could hurt them. This was rated on a suffering scale from 1 to 10 as follows. So none at all, name calling, Indian burn, ear flip, nipple tickle, black eye, broken nose, broken limbs. It was honestly quite difficult determining which way round I should order those last two. And here's how everyone did. Red being those who did not recite the embarrassing anecdote and blue being those who did. It can clearly be seen that people who recalled and recited the embarrassing anecdote tended to score much higher on the ill will metric than those who did not. Well, for the most part. Some people are just that intolerable regardless. So it's evident that remembering is something that can indeed increase the amount of animosity against a person, and any null hypothesis may be discarded. Further research is already underway to determine the extent that forgetfulness may protect an individual in other ways, as well as increase his chances while dating. If there is a flaw with this experiment, it's that the experimenter was not permitted to actually inflict any harm as desired upon participants. This could well be a source of reduced ecological validity, since the participants may have felt too safe, which could have unknown repercussions on everyone's memory. Thanks for listening. This is the worrying bit.
If this is true, do you think there is a potential danger in using technology like mobile phones and Facebook and things like that to record embarrassing moments and that sort of thing?
As long as you don't publish them to YouTube, it should be fine.
So that's where I went wrong. Okay.
Anyone else?
Wouldn't forgetting only really be adaptive when you're in the company of other very forgetful people? And therefore, wouldn't forgetful people just sort of segregate slowly into a distinct species of their own who have no idea what the fuck is going on?
Maybe that's why I have the friends that I have. I never thought of that.
Maybe you have. Maybe you
You listed violence that could be done, and I'm just wondering whether anyone actually acted that out, because that would, you'd be able to judge then sort of the realness of this.
As I say, I really wish I did. I mean,
do you remember any of it?
Due to ethics, I wasn't able to. I'm sure I would have written that down if I'd have gotten to. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe you.
Okay, and on that
Interesting.
slightly scary, ominous note, a round of applause for that guy. Okay, new rule, Lloyd. You don't need my permission to come up and start the change of presentations. Help yourself. I think everyone's kind of got into the swing of how it works.
Can we just give the trophy to Lloyd and
Can we just give
go
the trophy
home?
to Lloyd? Don't let Lloyd mutiny or we're in trouble, all right? I mean, the technology to take one presentation and paste it after the other one in PowerPoint doesn't yet exist. So, up next, you're one macro away from being redundant, all right? Up next, Alexandre Adler. He's a physics undergraduate from the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology. Acronym fans, that's SFIT. Currently on exchange at King's College London. Can you put your hands together for Alexandre Adler?
Thank you. Now, I will start very simply by saying what you all think tonight. Don't trust anyone. See, this doesn't even work. I trusted it. Yeah. So, cooperation is widespread in the animal kingdom. Here we have a herd of gnu cooperating with zebra to spot eventual predators in the savannah. With cooperation comes great dickishness. When you cooperate, you risk being lied to, abused, or just hindered by the incompetence of your friend. So, I mean, an evolutionary biologist, but not cooperating, you win every time. An evolutionary biologist would say, oh, well, you just have to remember who are dicks. But, as I didn't know, and Mr. Hodson brilliantly demonstrated, humans have really bad memory. And furthermore, they're tainted with emotions. I mean, raise your hand if a friend has ever lied to you. Yeah, and he's still your friend. See? Point proven. For instance, I told my friends they were going to have a fun time tonight. Also, I took like Weiner, I was make a good presentation, so I'm 2 for 2. But so, why do we keep trusting others, since we keep getting hurt? Well, we should expand our definition of we to include what's really inside us. Something else. Not the obvious oppositor from Alien. No, our friends, parasites. So that's a hypothesis. A parasite makes us trust others because when we trust others, it increases its chance of spreading. Now, I'll just start with a simple example. This is Toxoplasma gondii. Toxoplasma is a parasite that lives in cats. Oh, another team of tonight. How surprising. Toxoplasma gets shat by the cat, and then the shit gets eaten by mice. The mice then get manipulated by the toxoplasm in thinking that cat urine is actually really, really sexy. They get sexually aroused by it, seek it, and end up being devoured by the cat. So the parasite finishes its life cycle back in the cat's out of the bag, and the mice are dead. So, you think, yeah, it's a mouse is dumb. Well, wrong. Sorry. The mouse is not the only one affected. Humans, for instance, have also a highly prevalent rate of toxoplasma. Around 1 in 4 humans are infected. And we see humans forming a symbiotic relationship with cats. Coincidence? I think not. Now, it leaves the question, what is the transmission mechanism? Well, think about it. When you really trust someone, what is the main goal of a relationship? That's right, exchanging your precious bodily fluids. I'm talking about spit mostly. So, how would it go in human? Well, there are a variety of situations in which you trust somebody, they deceive you, and you expel fluid. For instance, your friend puts something gross in your drink, like salt. You drink it. That was spit, not a fart, spit. Congratulations, you just released plenty of bacteria in the atmosphere. Amazing. Second time, you remember that night at the pub. Well, maybe you don't, but that's another issue. Yeah, you remember that your friend told you, no, don't worry, buddy, you can still drink another one. Well, you couldn't, and you barfed your whole gastrointestinal tract out, spreading even more bacteria. Example numero 3. That Indian restaurant. You know exactly which one I'm talking about. You trusted the waiter. Well, too bad for you. You spread out fecal matter everywhere. And this is correlated also with countries with poor hygiene, which means that it doesn't go in the toilet, it goes all around you. It's wonderful, really. Most appreciable. Now, example number 4, the breakup. When you break up, oh, by the way, Google defines crying as very great. I don't know what's wrong with Google. When you break up, you end up emitting snot and tears. You trusted that person. They say they can no longer trust you. Congratulations, you're now emitting lacrimal fluid everywhere. Now, I guess we have overwhelming evidence of the theory now. We keep trusting others when we should know better. Parasites manipulate our behavior, as was shown by Toxoplasma. Fluid gets expelled when we trust people. Parasites are responsible for trust mechanisms. Now, just a little tidbit. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame parasiti. Do you have any questions?
So, are you saying that to be entirely safe, the human race should never snog anyone? I mean, that is the safest bet, right? I mean, forget just, condoms, prophylactics, like, don't even snog.
Well, it's not deadly so far, so to each his own. I mean, the gene pool can only get narrower.
I was really convinced by your impression of an evolutionary biologist who talks like this. I just wonder if you do any other voices.
No, but you mentioned you wanted experimental protocol, so I proposed the following double-blind experiment.
Yeah, go on.
So, you get somebody, ask him if he trusts you. Put him in a dark room, spray him with some unknown bodily fluid, turn on the lights, ask him if he trusts you more. Now, logically, by controlling against placebo, that would be water, he should end up trusting you more because there will be parasites in the bodily fluids.
That is, I didn't realize I was conducting an experiment every time I did that, but that's... It's convincing.
So, toxoplasma is really common in France. Please speculate as to the relevance of this to your hypothesis in as non-racist way as possible.
First, the French are dicks. I'm French. I can say I'm French. Okay. Second, it's actually toxoplasma also lives in raw meat. So countries with raw meats have a higher prevalence of toxoplasma. Toxoplasma have also been linked, interestingly, about 90% of people with schizophrenia or bipolarism have been shown to have toxoplasmosis. So even more evidence that they manipulate our behaviors, sometimes not to our own good.
Interesting.
Okay, before we do any more impressions, a final round of applause for Alexandre Adler. Yes, that talk was a mix of Cat's Forgetfulness and SMBC comics. I've got a hypothesis. Someone forgot to prepare a talk in advance and just recited what they'd seen so far. Okay, so up next, when someone is that was the best entrance you've had yet to the stage. It was slick, it was subtle. You got the job done. You're going away again. Okay, so. Up next, Ed Elcock. He's a physics undergraduate, but he aspires to one day be a software engineer. And, who writes these? His knowledge of evolution is extensive and covers all 6 generations of Pokemon. Ed Elcock!
Before we start, can I just get people at the back to raise their hand if they can hear me? Is that good? Okay, cool. I actually don't really know that much about Pokemon, so... Okay, I've lost. Right. So my talk is on the evolutionary morphology of social animals, how animals that live in groups have changed their shapes over time in response to selection pressures. So we're going to start with the descent of man, which shows how early hominids gradually became more upright over time until we see the fully upright modern human. The popular explanation of why we did this was that it freed up our hands to facilitate tool use. We propose an alternative hypothesis, one we feel that has broader explanatory power, and that is that humans became more upright in order to optimize our packing efficiency. Naturally, this is part of a broader principle which says that all social animals experience a selection pressure to pack as efficiently as possible. So we're going to start with a very simple model. Here we have some early hominids, as drawn by Darwin himself. And we see the kind of shape you'd use to model them, the kind of solid used to model them is, well, it's a sphere, really. And the packing efficiency of a single layer of spheres in 3D is just over 50%. Whereas a modern-day human is much more like a tall cuboid, which has a packing efficiency of 100%. So, to show that this is a real evolutionary strategy and not some quirk, we're going to look at some mechanisms that could confer an evolutionary advantage to well-packed organisms. So, we're going to compare a very well-packed organism, in this case modern humans, versus a badly packed organism, for which we've chosen a kind of Lovecraftian tentacle blob. So here we have a cave, and a tribe of humans has moved into it. The cave is providing them with warmth, shelter, security, and art. And we've managed to fit as many as 8 humans in this cave. 8! That's brilliant! Whereas the Lovecraftian horrors, in an identical cave, have only managed to fit 3, which is awful. When you have a spatially restricted resource, the better packed organism is going to make a better use of that resource. Meanwhile, the humans have gone out for a walk, but suddenly the weather's turned bad. Fortunately, they're able to pack together tightly, minimize surface area, and conserve heat. Whereas the Lovecraftian horrors expose a lot of surface area, they're cold, wet, and generally not having a good day. Let's now take a bird's eye view of our tribe of humans. We see that they're wandering around in an environment that's full of potential threats for them to stumble across. By packing together tightly, they minimize the area of their group, making them less likely to run into threats, such as this pack of wolves, this bear, or this tornado. Whereas the Lovecraftian horrors are spread over a much greater area. They present a larger cross-section to all these threats, making them much more likely to run into things that are going to give them some kind of evolutionary disadvantage. And fourthly, by packing together tightly, you reduce the size of your border, and the smaller your border is, the easier it is to guard it against external threats, and you have to expend fewer resources and time in watching it. So, what predictions does this theory make? Well, to start with, we'd expect the dominant life form on Earth to pack very well. We'd expect something small, squishy, and very simple, like bacteria. And this theory also explains why early eukaryotic cells became symbiotic with mitochondria. If we imagine... If we imagine the early eukaryotic cells had just some mitochondria-shaped holes in them, and there was some mitochondria floating around, just put them in, yeah, sure, why not? Another prediction is we'd expect to see different shapes evolve in the ocean compared to on land, because it makes sense for land animals to optimize their packing efficiency in the plane in 2 dimensions, whereas marine animals should logically pack in 3D. And just qualitatively speaking, we do see very different shapes evolving in the sea compared to on land. And thirdly, we'd expect to see a difference between vertebrates and invertebrates. Vertebrates, with their soft, squishy, deformable exterior, will pack pretty well, regardless of what they originally look like, if you squish them together tightly. Whereas invertebrates, with their rigid exoskeleton, need to pack well as a virtue of their intrinsic shape. Fortunately, there was a lot of work done on this already by the noted biologist M.C. Escher, who... So yeah, they pack pretty well without deformation. So I'm going to leave you with one last thing to think about, which is if we really evolved to optimize our packing efficiency, then why are humans still so bad at packing? This is an exaggerated diagram, but you can see how there are gaps when you try and squish people together. And our explanation for this is that biological evolution has been replaced by human culture as the agent of packing efficiency optimization. This started around 40 million years ago when we domesticated wolves. I mean, this was a good start, but then there's still some pretty big gaps in there. What if we took this stick and this bit of metal and kind of put them together? And that just coincidentally turns out to be really good for agriculture. But there's still some gaps there. So these clothes things we're wearing, what if we made more? These are great for holding things and covering my head. That's nice. And then we domesticate some smaller animals to fill in the gaps there. And since then, basically, human culture has just been about making more and more stuff to fill in the gaps so that our packing efficiency can tend to 100% and we can become optimally packed. Thank you very much.
You kept saying, we hypothesize this, we propose this. Who else is in your team?
I like to think of myself as a hive mind.
I want to ask you about what experiments you could do, but I'm already thinking of humans put together in different orientations.
Yeah, that's basically it.
But plus domesticated animals, then it gets weird, doesn't it?
By your logic, surely the snake should be the most sophisticated and sociable organism on the planet, given that it's basically a long, thin tube. You can align them very easily. You can kind of ball them up. You can squish them into the corner of your suitcase.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are lots of candidates for sort of what the best packed animal would be, because, I mean, cats fit into any container. So, I mean, sure, cats, snakes, but you notice the trend between these animals is that they're all dicks, so they don't really cooperate well. Like, a society of snakes is just, no.
Is there optimal orientation of humans in terms of, better fitting, packing?
Sorry, could you repeat?
You've studied this, I'm assuming.
Could you repeat the question? Sorry. Could you repeat the question? Sorry.
Slowly.
What's the...
I think the question is, are we approaching cubes?
Yeah, well, in this theory, basically each individual human is now becoming a kind of super organism where you group them with their domesticated animals and their clothes and their tools, and gradually humans are just becoming bigger. And the ideal situation is all your worldly possessions should kind of fit in a nice cube around you, like inside a house.
All right, I'm going to call off the questions there. Round of applause for Ed Elcock. I, for one, would rather pack as a rhombic dodecahedron. So, up next, apart from the background noise of Lloyd, we have Michael Anderson, who will be coming up. He is a person who's brought several friends with him. He is an American... you just really like his name. He is an American free speech lawyer, which means I can say whatever I want and he has to defend me. He's based in Boston, but he grew up in Louisiana. You can start walking now. Oh, I'm not getting too close to Lloyd. He's based in Boston, but he grew up in Louisiana. He did well in high school biology, apparently, but failed the exam on intelligent design. Please welcome Michael Anderson.
Evolutionary biologists need to stop complaining about creationism. Now, I realize that it's bizarre that in the country, indeed the state, that sent people to the moon, that there is a mass movement to make the first chapter of Genesis into the state's official biology textbook. But evolutionary theory is supposed to thrive on the bizarre, that this is what got Darwin started. That the more bizarre the adaptation, the stronger the evidence of some unseen selection pressure. Let me show you this phylogenetic diagram, published last month by the Australian scientist Nick Matsky. It shows how creationist legislation in the American South has evolved along classic Darwinist lines, that it has replicated and mutated its DNA in response to the predatory selection pressure of federal court decisions. And I propose to build on Matsky's model. We begin with the curious fact that creationist education is actually the most prevalent in those states where NASA has space facilities. And that the primary medium of transmission is radio and television broadcasts, which means that right-wing fundamentalism is disseminating not only across the surface of the Earth, but into deep space. And so, since this has been on the air since the 1960s, this means that there are now over 2,000 star systems within 50 light years of the sun that have seen this programming. And depending on how you fill in the values in the Drake equation, we have the embarrassing reality that there must be several, maybe dozens, of advanced intelligent civilizations that have seen this stuff. Now, why haven't they replied? Wait for it. The most disturbing answer is that we are probably being stalked. That advanced predatory empires are sizing us up as possible threats or as colonies. And this is not good news, because if these extraterrestrials are anything like us, we are in a lot of trouble. Because the history of human discovery has not been a happy one for the peoples that get discovered. And we can develop a triage matrix for extraterrestrial predators. What they are looking for in principle are subject populations that are rational enough to be housebroken, but not so advanced that they will be able to fight back. And that yields the imperial imperative of an expedition to enslave us. And in the opposite quadrant, if they think that we are sophisticated and crazy, we are going to get a different kind of expedition, a preemptive strike to wipe us out before we pose a threat to their empire. And if they think that we are both sophisticated and rational, they will immediately co-opt us into their empire with no trace of our former identity. And the only quadrant in which the predators manage to avoid us is the upper left-hand one, where they realize that we are both so crazy and so stupid that there is absolutely no point in coming here. This is what Humphrey Bogart says to the German officer in Casablanca. There are certain sections of New York, Major, I advise you not to try to invade. And so it is with creationism. Evolutionary biology knows this as a very common adaptive behavior in prey species. Thanatosis. It's a system of behaviors to convince the predator that there's really nothing good to eat here. That we are either dead or rabid or contagious. And we see this not just in possums, but in hog snakes, in small birds, in amphibians, and indeed in tiny mammals who have low self-esteem. And so it is when the listening posts on Alpha Centauri report that on Earth, we believe that the entire universe was created 5 seconds ago by some telekinetic superghost. That we believe that dinosaurs bunked with giraffes on the Ark, and that DNA and species similarity and fossil records are all the forgeries of Satan. And learning that about us, do you think they're going to invest in an expedition here? I don't think so. And this is the triumph of human evolution. That human beings, particularly those in Texas, have figured out a sophisticated form of interplanetary defensive counterintelligence to convince our would-be overlords that we are too barbaric to colonize and too stupid to pose a threat. So, my friends, I'm telling you, there is no point in complaining about this development. We should rejoice. We should give them the Darwin Medal, the Victoria Cross, the Congressional Medal of Honor, and while we're at it, the Nobel Prize. Planetary defense begins with camouflage in Texas. Thank you.
Okay, this is a very nice idea, but is it not completely preposterous to suggest that belief in creationism could so neatly align with spacefaring states through random evolutionary change? Is it not a sign that creationism is in fact intelligently designed?
Well, I think Alexandre would make the argument that it could be the result of an alien parasite designed to make us this way around the moment of interstellar contact. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And that would be a form of intelligent design. It would just be an intelligence coming from an alien virus implanted in our intellectual system.
Good, that makes total sense. Thank you.
What are some of the weirdest adaptations you've observed in the theory of creationism? Tap, 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 tap. He's got something.